and welcome back to another episode of Hustle Haven. We are your hosts. I'm Taisha Renee.
And I'm River the Realtor.
And per usual, happy Monday. Welcome back. Today, we are talking to our people trying to balance 9 to 5s as well as being an entrepreneur.
Look, if you want to boss up your life, all you got to do is get in with it. Sorry, that song is in my head. That song is really stuck in my head. And I feel like this is the moment.
No, seriously, because I feel like there's just a lot of like negativity around people who like still do entrepreneurship and still work their 9 to 5. They're like, oh, you can't be successful or you can't fulfill your dreams while doing both. But like if you put both foot forward, like literally foot forward and put your all into it, like it can be done.
I think it's that stigma, right? Because it's like on one hand, it's like, oh, if you're working a 9 to 5, you can't run a business. And then it's like, oh, if you're running a business, you can't have a job. It's like,
who said it?
It's the internet. It's really y'all girls on TikTok, and I see y'all.
In Portia Voice, who said that? Who made that? Who made that a thing?
I think it's the TikTok girls, and I'm on to y'all.
I know, and I hate how they make you feel so bad because like you're working a 9 to 5 because they're making you feel bad because you're getting a consistent check.
Yeah.
Who does that? And why do we allow them to do that?
I don't know. And I think for me, I'm like the complete opposite, right? I am a really, really firm believer in if you're starting a business, especially if you're like fresh in this business or you're just now building a business, you literally need your 9 to 5.
Yeah.
One, because to build a business costs money. So if you don't have a 9 to 5, how are you funding your entrepreneurship
Life
goals?
costs money. Have you been seeing the TikToks where you step out of the door and it's
how
like
much you spend?
Lunch $27?
How much have you spent today? Be honest.
Gas. Well, I just want to say that I got my hair done. I got my makeup done. Don't want to talk about I'm recording today. We're going to dinner. I've spent a lot. And I'm going to set up a GoFundMe because that's what seems to be the thing. I'm going to set up a GoFundMe.
Yeah, I feel like it's just expensive to live, especially if you live in a city like this. Like we live in Atlanta where like you walk out the door thinking you're going to Target.
Play.
You have to pay even if you're not playing. You could be sitting on the sideline and still have to pay. So for me, I feel like having a 9 to 5 and being an entrepreneur is essential.
Yeah.
So I want you to talk about yours because I feel like you lasted the longest.
You know how I feel about this, and I feel like... Anyway, let's get into it. So today, y'all, we're going to be talking about strategies to like really balance your 9 to 5, ways to be successful in both careers and still do what you need to do. So I think for me, I would say me having a 9 to 5 is really a motivator.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's all about the way you look at it, all about perspective, all about, do you wake up in the morning and you're trying to make excuses of, I can't do this because I have this 9 to 5? Or do you wake up and say, okay, I have this 9 to 5. What time do I have to do this?
Exactly.
You see the two separate
It's very
mindsets?
different. I think first of all, I love that. I always say something like, you have to have a 9 to 5 and being an entrepreneur is 5 to 9.
Right.
Because again, some people
5 to 9 and then
9 to 5 and then 5 to 9.
6 to 9, 9 to 5, 5 to
no, it's
be
5.
continued.
It's as soon as when you get off. No, I think the big thing though is like when you have your 9 to 5 job, like you said, some people will use as an excuse not to grow in their business, right? Because it's so much easier to say like, oh, I couldn't do this for my business because I had to go to work.
Right.
But you know the famous thing, you find time for the things you want to make time for. And I think it's the same thing about your business. So to your point, we both, when we started like in our businesses, we had 9 to 5. And Taisha literally up until like
yesterday
literally had a 9 to 5 job.
I still wake up and I'm like, I cannot believe
that you don't have
I be like, I don't got no job.
So let's talk about balance. Like, how were you balancing the two? Because you really held on longer than I thought.
I held on. So the thing about me, and it also depends on, I think it's based on the individual. Because for me, I do work fast. Yeah. I will say that my reviews at my job are like, she works fast, and 99% of the time, it's correct. Like, it's fast, and we don't got to send it back to her to do it again. Like, it's right. And I think that works in my favor because I'm fast-paced, I'm a fast learner. Yeah. You can teach me something like one time and I got it. Like you don't have to keep coming back and feeding it to me because I have it. And I think that works in my favor. But if you're someone who may not pick up on things that quickly or you take a long time to do stuff, I can see how that can kind of be tricky for you when trying to balance the two because it's like now you're taking like 4 hours to complete a task versus the 1 hour that I'm taking.
Extra time.
You know what I'm saying? You don't have the extra time because you take a little bit more time, and that's fine. But I think if you're taking 4 hours to do this task, then maybe you need to take 2 hours. The next 2 hours, you need to be focused on that entrepreneur.
I think your time span, and I also think industry matters, right? Yeah. I don't want to sit up here and say like you should go be a surgeon and try to do real estate? Because I do think that's a little crazy.
If it's anything like Grey's Anatomy, it's not possible.
No, it's literally not possible. I think the big thing though is like being in the industry or like at least having a job that's conducive to being able to do both, right? Like I'm super big on mental health. When people like, she's the queen of boundaries, and I'm just getting to a point where I can set boundaries because I realize like if I'm not my best self mentally, I can't be my best self in my business or for my family. So I think when you are juggling the two, it's important to have a job that really does give you that capability. I will say like when I first got my real estate license, I was working in corporate, I was working for a bank, I was doing HR, and I was working from home pretty much most of the time because it was right post-COVID. So I did have that wiggle room, right? Like if we weren't super, super busy, I'm already behind a computer. I can do certain things. But like if you have a job that requires you to be driving around in the field, actually at work, like you will limit the amount of time that you can have throughout your day to focus on entrepreneurship. And I mean, I think that is kind of a struggle.
Yeah. I feel like as an entrepreneur and working at 9 to 5, you really have to plan ahead. I know for me, I used to look at, okay, I know that I have this client wanting to go see these homes at X time. Let me go block off my calendar. Some people don't have the flexibility to do that, but let me go block off my calendar. Like, okay, that's my lunchtime,
exactly.
That's my lunchtime. I will say, like, when you do both, there's no such thing as downtime.
Period.
Like, if you don't have anything to do for your job, you have something to do for that entrepreneur role. Like, and I'm just gonna speak on real estate because that's what I do. Like I'm a realtor. It's like I have something that I can be doing. If I don't have a client that I'm showing, I have a report that I can pull. I have articles that I can read. I have classes that I can take. There's so many things that you can be doing in that downtime that you quote unquote say downtime to fulfill, that moment or whatever.
I agree. I don't even think it's just being a realtor. I think it's like no matter what line of business you're in. If you're doing hair, you're doing nails, if you have vending machines, a parking lot, whatever your entrepreneurial like things are, there's no downtime because literally the things that you'll be like fighting to do in crunch time could have been the things you did in your downtime. Exactly. So I think a pro tip is really being intentional about your schedule, right? Like if you know you have certain things that have to get done, like pre-plan your schedule. Like it's really, really hard to just do stuff on the fly, at least for me, right? Like if I don't have it planned and plotted out, it's not going to work. And so when you're trying to balance like having one line of business and running your own personal business, like imagine trying to do all those tasks on the fly. Something is going to get missed. And that's really when you start harming yourself.
No, when you're doing both, you really got to get in your planning bag. Yeah. If you're unorganized, it's not going to work. It's not going to work on both because in the mornings for me, my strategy was, and I'm a morning person. If you're a night person, maybe you need to do this.
A morning person. I mean, 6 a.m. grand risings. I'm like, yuck. Please stop calling.
Maybe 7, not 6. Anyway, what was I about to say? Okay, wait, stop.
You're talking about organizing and scheduling.
Put us back in, boom. If you're unorganized, it's just not going to work out. For me personally, like every morning being the morning person that I am, and if you are not a morning person, you may need to do it the night before. Yeah. And you know me and my notebook. My notebook is not too far. I have to write her down. If it's not written down, it's probably going to be forgotten. I write out everything. Each client, what do I need to do? Whatever. Even for the 9 to 5, like, what do I need to do for this? Like, I'm writing out everything so I know exactly what's on my plate. I'm looking at my calendar. When do I have meetings? Yeah. What do I have due? When is this due? Like, you have to be really organized. You have to really strategize when you're balancing both because otherwise it's going to be a mess.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite quotes that I've ever said on a public platform is, if you want to have structure in your business, you have structure in your life.
Period.
And I think that's really what that comes down to, like being able to really structure out everything so that you can make it make sense. Because again, trying to do stuff off the fly is so crazy. Like when I first started real estate and my mom would be like, oh, what you got going on? I would just tell her, I'm working with this lady and she's doing here and da-da-da. And she's like, dang, you remember all of that? And at the time, it was all I had going on. So I had nothing else consuming my brain. Yeah. But like, imagine trying to juggle 2 different things. Like you have to be really, really structured and being really intentional. And I think to Taisha's point, I'm like the complete opposite. Like I don't want to be a morning person. I think naturally, like I be having to get up.
You've been getting up earlier though.
I be having to get up.
You've been texting me at like 7 or 8.
I be texting her back, but like I be like this. Like I'm not really a morning person, and so I'm one of those people who like I will stay up all night. And so for me and my business, when I was working 9 to 5, I'm an email scheduler. So if I had like emails that needed to go out, I would type the emails up the night before, go on my Gmail and schedule them to be sent out at 8 a.m. So it looks like, okay, this girl is on and she's doing it. But at 8 a.m. when you got the email, my eyes are closed. I'm asleep.
That's a good one.
I'm not up. I'm not moving right. Yeah. But that's the time that I work. And you obviously can't communicate with people at 3 o'clock in the morning because that's not business hours. And that's kind of ridiculous. But you can do some of those back end things like sending out your emails, scheduling things to go out and just making sure you have organization because again, you lose time. Like when you sleep, that's time you could have been working. And I know that sucks because it's like, I'm never telling somebody to give up your whole life to do a business or be an entrepreneur, but it takes a high level of commitment and a high level of sacrifice.
Yeah, let's talk about those days where like one trumps the other.
Yeah.
Like those days where like this 9 to 5 has like drug me through the mud.
Yeah.
And I cannot touch my real estate business today. And that was really the breaking point for me where I was like, I cannot do this forever. Yeah. At first I was like, this is cool. Like, I don't see what people talking about. Like, I could do this, like whatever. But those days where it is like, wow, like I have been working on this job from literally 9 to 5 with no breaks. And it's like, now my brain is literally fried. Like, how do you, it's the shift in the task of what you're doing for me. That was one thing that I did struggle with. It's like, these are two completely different industries. Yeah. Like, I'm doing marketing, account management over here, and I'm doing real estate. These are two completely things.
There's no overlap.
There's no overlap on how you two can relate. So it's like, if I've had a full day of being an account manager and I got all this going on, sometimes I don't feel like,
I don't have anything to give
to real estate. I don't have
anything
to give to the real estate. On those days, like, what would you advise? Like, what would you do?
So I'm actually glad you said that because I'm always big on, like, not always speaking about, like, the pretty parts of entrepreneurship, but really speaking about the thing.
Because it can get real.
It gets nasty over here. No, I think that, I don't know. I think for me, it's important to be intentional and have some type of exit strategy or some type of end goal, right? Like, even if your end goal is not like, okay, I'm going to work my 9 to 5 up until I get to this level of success in my entrepreneurship business, and then I'm going to leave it. Maybe your job is, okay, or your end goal is, I'm going to balance the two and I want to make this amount of money. I think having your end goal in mind is what kind of helps you get over those humps. But I think you have to have an end goal, because I think when you get to that point and you don't have anything in your mind planned on, like, how are you going to fix this, right? When I had those days, it was easy for me to just kind of like muscle up the courage to move on, because in my head I knew I have a number I need to reach in my bank account. I got a number of clients I need in my book of business. And once I reach that, I don't have to deal with the scrutiny of working a 9 to 5 in corporate America and being an entrepreneur. I had an end goal. But for people who are just like racing the clock, not really knowing, like, I feel like that's really hard for you to figure out. So for me, it's always being intentional and really having an end goal in terms of, like, what does this look like with you juggling it? Because don't get me wrong, you can do it.
Yeah.
But at some point, to your point, enough got to be enough.
It gets draining.
It's draining.
And I love that of having the end goal now. You guys, we are definitely pro stay at your job until you are getting the funds. Like, if you are not getting consistent income from that entrepreneurship, you need to wait, baby. It's not your time. I don't care what TikTok says. I don't care what Instagram says. Listen to what we are saying on Hustle Baby.
This is your safe space.
This is your safe space, y'all. Keep that job, because we do not want you to be crying in the shower with your sweater on because you cannot pay your rent.
I'm gonna say this. Like, let's get real right now, okay? I made the most money in my life in 2022. Okay, I sold $10 million in real estate. Don't try to calculate my funds because you're gonna get the number wrong. But I made the most money I had ever made in my life. I was 25, I think, and I had a job for 8 months out of the 12 months of a year that I made, again, the most money I'd ever seen.
You was living life.
And I was living life, and people were just like, why are you at work? Why are you working your job? And I just kept telling myself, like, this moment felt surreal. Like, when we made that top, like, it felt surreal to me. And in my head, I just kept thinking, like, even though this is a grand moment, like, what if in 2023, like, it just all goes to hell?
Because it can.
And it did. Now, granted, it did not go to the floor, but, like, I didn't sell $10 million in real estate the following year. Like, interest rates skyrocketed. And although I was still able to, make top producer and sell millions of dollars in real estate, it wasn't $10 million. It was close, but it wasn't that. You know what I mean? So I still had a deficit in the amount of money that I made, on top of the fact that I wasn't working a full-time job. So it looked extremely different. And I just kept looking back to that moment thinking, like, if I had to quit my job the minute that things started looking upward, I wouldn't have enough savings and enough coverage and things like that. So while on one hand it looks all cool to, I'm gonna quit my job, I'm gonna go to Pilates, I'm gonna go get vegan milkshakes with my girls. Like, that stuff costs money, and you need your bread. You need your bread.
Yeah, I think I'm like the complete opposite. I do think, like you said, in 2022 we made top producers. In 2023, I got really complacent. I was really comfortable with, like, I need to sell houses, but I don't need to sell houses.
I ain't gotta sell houses.
I'm getting paid great over here. Like, this money is kind of, I felt like it felt like extra money.
Yeah.
And again, that's when I was like, is this what I really want? Because I knew from the get-go that while I enjoy like the industry that I was in, the work that I was doing, again, I said it before, it was not impactful for me. And I knew that from the beginning. I knew that since I was living in New York. I told my roommates, like, this work is not impactful for me. I cannot do this for the rest of my life. So once I felt myself getting complacent, when I felt myself like, oh, girl, you getting too comfortable. Because there is a point where, like, you're getting too comfortable.
If you making 6 figures at work and you making 6 figures in your business,
you are comfortable. Like, I am comfortable.
Do I really need to be chasing clients down?
But it's like, dang, I'm looking at like, dang, I could really be doing like way more. But I knew that it was like, not that it's an excuse, but I knew it was just a matter of, Taisha, you could be doing so much more, but you're not, because like, you don't have that thing to scare you. You don't have that motivation to like, I'm getting up today and I don't know where my next check coming from. And I knew like, I had to go back to my first year in real estate when I was full-time and I didn't have that 9 to 5 and I was just outside
getting it.
I was grinding.
Your grind look different when you grinding for your life.
Your grind look different. And I was like, I really, really, really need that back. So when you say end goal, it's like I had to have a certain amount saved up in my bank account. I had to have certain debts paid off. To lower what I'm having to pay. And I had to have a certain consistent number of clients coming in for me to say, okay, Taisha, you can quit this job. I didn't just up and quit. Like, it was a plan. Like, I had it in like 6 months. Like, I had a plan. Like, okay, on this date, these things need to be in place before I can say goodbye.
Okay, I like this. Okay, let's break this up in 2 things. Let's break it out as 1. Tips to balance while you are doing your 9 to 5, right? One thing we talked about was being organized, being intentional, having a schedule, and really being meticulous about like the way you allocate your time to different things. Anything else on that in terms of balancing?
That's a good wrap.
Right? I think the next thing is like when you know that, okay, you've completed your check mark. Like if you do decide I've done the 9 to 5 long enough and I want to pivot into entrepreneurship, what are those things that we need to be concerned about?
You need to be concerned about, I think that's personal. I think it depends on, not like for me personally, it depends on the individual. Person, You know what I'm saying? Like, you know what type of help you have. You know whatever you got going on. I knew for me that I need to have X amount of dollars because I got a mortgage. I need to pay down these debts because I know this is what my debts look like. You know what I'm saying? I need a certain amount of clients. If you're in e-commerce, you need a certain amount of sales. For sure. Consistently. Like, it depends on you as an individual. You have to, like we said, look at your financial tracker, your expense tracker. You have to look at all of these things to see what makes sense for me. Where if I quit this job, knowing that entrepreneurship, you know, it can be whatever. But if you have what you have in place, you're going to be good. Like, you're going to be fine. So I think it's just a matter of, before you make that transition, definitely have that end goal, definitely have that plan, because otherwise you're going to quit that job and then you're going to wake up the next morning, you're going to be like, I don't got no job.
What's that mean when they like,
like, I don't know what's going on. Like, what are you going to do? Like, even with what I needed to do, I had a plan of when I do quit it, what does my day look like? I no longer have this 9 to 5. Like, what am I doing
every day
to fulfill my day? I'm with River every day now.
And we're doing the dang thing.
I'm outside with River. Like, we're getting content. Like, I'm making sure my social media is up to date. Like, I'm talking to my sphere of influence. Like, I'm doing new marketing things. Like, I'm doing these things. Like, you can't go in there blindsided.
I agree. I think
can't go in there.
Entrepreneur, just like anything in life, has its ebbs and flows. You have moments when you super up and we in Magic City tricking the bag off. And then we have those things that's like, you cooking dinner tonight.
It's like, I got noodles.
But I think the biggest thing to recognize and to realize is that you can do both and you should do both. But if your end goal is to be 100% entrepreneur, to be 100% on your own, have your end goal in mind and what that's going to take to get there. But we are advocates for the 9 to 5 to entrepreneurship, because I don't think we would be sitting here right now if we just completely said, oh, I'm just not going to do this. Like, my 9 to 5 saved my life in so many scenarios. So it's possible, it's doable. And I feel like, don't fall victim to, you know, everybody saying like, quit your 9 to 5 and bet on yourself.
They probably eat noodles every day.
Okay.
And that's okay.
Noodles in like $5,000 apartments with their bad credit.
$5,500
No, they got the $5,000 condo. Ain't no food or no furniture. You don't want to be that person. So I think We're advocates for keeping your 9 to 5. You can balance, make sure you schedule, make sure you're on point, make sure you have an end goal in mind, and just always put yourself first. Like, don't be so focused on trying to follow the wave. Like, put yourself in what's going to work for your life first.
And be disciplined, y'all. Discipline, discipline, discipline. Your key word, if you're doing both, is literally discipline and consistency.
Okay. Discipline and consistency. Yeah. How you can balance your 9 to 5. That's the title of the episode.
Period.
It eats. Can we cheers?
Always do that.
We're going to cheers down discipline.
Cheers to y'all balancing both because y'all the real bosses for real. Cheers.
See you guys.